In this lesson, you're going to learn about some common misconceptions in relation to synonyms in the IELTS test, and I'm going to show you some common mistakes that IELTS candidates make in their writing. My name is Lara Ryan. I've been an IELTS examiner, I've been an IELTS teacher at the British Council, I've been teaching IELTS for well over a decade, and I am the founder of Complete Test Success. So firstly, I want to show you how to improve your knowledge of synonyms. And really, it's important that we start with understanding what a synonym really is. And the key really is that a word by itself is not a synonym. So I cannot say have is a synonym. That's an incomplete sentence. It has to be connected with another word. So what I can say is have is a synonym of eat. So what this means is that have and eat have a similar or the same meaning. So in this context, I can say, every day I eat breakfast at 7 o'clock, or every day I have breakfast at 7 o'clock. So in this context, these words are direct synonyms, meaning that they can replace each other without changing the grammar or any other aspect of the sentence. However, we cannot always use these words interchangeably. So just because the words are synonyms in this context does not mean that they will always be synonyms. So in this context, I always have a cup of coffee with my breakfast. I cannot use eat because it doesn't have the same meaning. Now, the reason that you likely want to improve your synonyms is because you've made mistakes in the IELTS reading or the IELTS listening test where you didn't know a synonym that would have shown you what the correct answer is. Or you might be worried that you're not using enough synonyms in your IELTS speaking test or in your IELTS writing test. But the thing is, you already know thousands and thousands of synonyms, but not because you've been studying synonyms, because you've been studying vocabulary. And what that means is if you're having problems with IELTS reading, writing, listening, or speaking, it's not because you need to improve your synonyms, it's because you need to improve your vocabulary. So already by learning vocabulary, you know synonyms, and by further improving your vocabulary, you will know even more synonyms. And that is the real solution to the problems you're having with the IELTS test. So in short, you need to study vocabulary, not synonyms. And to help you with that, you can follow my vocabulary improvement strategy. I will leave a link for you to find that in the video description. Next, we're going to look at common mistakes in Task 2. And these are vocabulary mistakes that I regularly see in IELTS writing because the candidate is trying to use synonyms. The first word we will look at is the word nowadays. And what this indicates is that what's happening now is not the same as the situation was in the past. Now, the reason this mistake appears so often in IELTS writing is because it's often part of the question. So, for example, you can see the word nowadays at the beginning of the question on your screen. We can paraphrase this by saying presently or these days, because both of those still show a connection between now and the past. Common words that I see used incorrectly are today, at the moment. These two don't really indicate a difference between the past and now. It's more of a shorter time period and doesn't represent the same idea. And then the phrase in this day and age is not a phrase that's used very often in modern English. And the next word we're looking at is the word many. And by many, what we're really saying is that it's a lot of people, not a small group of people. So again, this would often appear in a question, something like this. There are many who feel. And that's just showing us that it's not a small group of people who believe this. This can be paraphrased as many feel, some people feel, there are some who feel, and it's just showing us that it's not a small group of people, so we cannot paraphrase this with a phrase that indicates a specific number. Common mistakes are most or most people, because this indicates that it's more than half the people. But the word many does not convey that meaning, so you will have changed the meaning by using either of these. The word several is closer in meaning to a small number, so really that is not an appropriate synonym either. Numerous is similar in meaning, but it is not used to collocate with people in the way that many is, so it's not appropriate either. And then a myriad of is a phrase that isn't commonly used in the English language. Now, next is the word some, which we can use as a collocation of many, but strangely enough, it doesn't work the other way around. Because the word some just means not everybody, we cannot say many because some might be a smaller group of people or a bigger group of people. That information is not communicated with the word some. So we need to use different synonyms to paraphrase this. So again, you'll often see this word in questions to represent people. So some say meaning some people say. Appropriate ways to paraphrase this, we can say some people say, there are some who say, there are those who say. But again, this is very often paraphrased incorrectly by IELTS candidates, and phrases like many, a few, the majority, and a group of people are used incorrectly. Next, we have the word believe, which is just used to show that it's a person's opinion and not a fact that is being stated. So again, you'll find this word quite often in an IELTS Task 2 question. In this case, some people believe. This can be paraphrased with words like think, hold, feel, and maintain. But again, it's very often paraphrased incorrectly by IELTS candidates using phrases like imagine, presume, reckon, guess, accept, and know. And the thing is that these words have a very similar meaning to believe, but they do not have the exact same meaning, so they are not appropriate. Next, we're looking at words that refer to a certain age group, because these are very often paraphrased incorrectly by students from all over the world. First, we're going to start with teenagers. So you could see it in this question, but also this is often used incorrectly to paraphrase other age groups. So what we can say is teens are people in their teens. However, this is commonly paraphrased incorrectly with the phrases children. Children covers people from age 0 to 18, whereas teenagers just represents people from 13 to 19. The word youngsters is inappropriate for the same reason as children, but also it's too informal for the writing test. The word adolescent refers to a child becoming an adult, but doesn't necessarily mean a teenager. Young adults would be older than teenagers, and a minor is just somebody who is under 18. The next word that is often paraphrased incorrectly is the word people. And really, there isn't much variety with this word, and you will likely have to use it many times in your essay if that's what the question is about. So again, we have a question with the word people in it. Nowadays, more people are getting married. One way you can paraphrase this is with the word individuals. But again, this is often incorrectly paraphrased because the synonyms used are inaccurate. By saying humans, human beings, or humankind, these words refer to people as a species of animal more than the context that the question is referring to. Then the word persons is actually accurate, but it's a very infrequently used word, so it's best not to use that one either. The next word is children because it appears in the IELTS test so often, and that's why we find incorrect synonyms used very frequently in Writing Task 2 for this word. Again, here is a question with the word children in it, and this can be paraphrased with the phrases the youth, which always needs an article, and young people. But again, we often see the incorrect synonyms used, youngsters, which would be appropriate for the speaking test because it does have the same meaning, but it is too informal for the writing test. Again, adolescence has a different meaning, teenagers we already looked at, kids is too informal, and then in another context, when we're talking about parents and their children, the word offspring is not suitable because it's more of a scientific term. And the last word is until, which is often paraphrased as till. For example, things won't improve until we work together. Now, till is appropriate in meaning, it's grammatically correct, but it is too informal for writing. You can use it in your IELTS speaking test, but refrain from using it in your IELTS writing test, especially Task 2, and the only case where it would be suitable is if you are writing an informal letter in General Training Task 1. Next, I want to talk to you about using synonyms in your IELTS speaking and your IELTS writing tests. So really, the examiner will be checking if you're using synonyms in your speaking answers and in your writing answers, but that's the examiner's job. By answering the questions, you will naturally use synonyms. That's unavoidable. So you don't want to focus on using synonyms, you just want to focus on clearly communicating your ideas. If you actively try to use synonyms in your IELTS speaking test, there are two things that can happen. Firstly, you're trying to use words that you don't fully remember, so you need to stop and think of the word. You end up pausing more often, and that will bring down your fluency score. The second thing that will happen is if you're actively trying to use synonyms, you're not using the words that you're more familiar and more comfortable with, and that will lead to more mistakes being made, as in less accuracy, and that can bring down your lexical resource score. So if you are concerned about synonyms, you need to improve your vocabulary before the IELTS test, and when you're in the IELTS test, you're just focusing on clear communication. Now, writing is a little bit different because you have more time to process your ideas, you have more time to stop and think. But what I would suggest is that you finish your essay first, then while you're proofreading, you can start to remove words you've used too often and replace those with synonyms. However, only do this if you're 100% confident that the synonym is appropriate, and you may need to adjust the grammar to make sure that everything fits accurately. Next, I want to talk about very common misconceptions about paraphrasing. So paraphrasing is where you take the question statement and you rewrite it in your own words. It's the first sentence you write for task 1 and for task 2. Now, because you're writing in your own words, of course you need to use synonyms, but that does not mean that you cannot use any of the words in the question. In fact, in many instances, you will have no choice. The main objective is that your paraphrase has the exact same meaning as the question. And if that means that you need to reuse some of the words in the question, that's exactly what you should do. Also, consider that the paraphrase is the least important part of your essay. And what a lot of candidates do is they're afraid to use the words from the question, and they end up spending 5-10 minutes writing the paraphrase. And considering you only have 40 minutes to complete your whole 250 plus word essay, if you spend 10 minutes writing the first sentence, you're not giving yourself a good opportunity to get a high score. Next, I want to talk to you about the 3 main reasons why IELTS candidates regularly use synonyms inaccurately. The first reason is that a lot of students use a thesaurus to find new vocabulary. The problem with this is that a thesaurus will list every word that's even closely related to the word you searched for. So you cannot take any word from a thesaurus and just replace it directly with the word you searched. And then, of course, it depends on the context. So if you look at this list of words, study, learn, review, work, and prepare, you will likely say that some of these are not synonyms. But the fact is that these can be used in a way where they all have the same meaning. Last night I was studying for the IELTS test. Last night I was learning about the IELTS test. So here we had to change the prepositions, but after that the meaning is the exact same. Number 3, last night I was reviewing what I've learned about the IELTS test. So in this way, studying and learning are very similar to reviewing, but we're definitely not learning any new information. Number 4, last night I was working towards improving my IELTS scores. Now again, all of these have a very similar meaning, but in general we wouldn't say that work and study are synonyms of each other, but when used in the correct context, they can be. Last night I was preparing for the IELTS test. So the point that I'm trying to make here is that you really have to improve your vocabulary by learning from the context in which you read the vocabulary. It's not okay to go to a thesaurus or go to a list of words and just find words with a similar meaning and start using them. You have to have a deeper understanding of how the word is used. Now, if you'd like more feedback from me about the synonyms you're using correctly and incorrectly, you can sign up for my free live feedback lessons using the link in the video description. Another reason why candidates use so many synonyms inaccurately in their essays is because they feel they have to use synonyms. Now, IELTS teachers use the word synonyms a lot to explain what to do, how to improve, and how to answer the different question types. That does not mean you have to use as many synonyms as you can. The main focus is clear communication, and if you put all your effort into using synonyms, you're just going to make more mistakes. And the final reason is that students start to use vocabulary before they fully understand what it means. And with the vocabulary improvement strategy that I already mentioned, you will learn exactly how to overcome that issue. Finally, make sure to like this video and subscribe to my channel for more important information like this.